Welcome. My name is Kira Kuhn, and I am one of the health educators in the Health and Preventive Services Department at Sentara Health Plans. And I'm so happy to be here with you today to talk about something really fun. And bonus, it's good for our health, and that is laughter. We are going to start off today by going over how laughter even comes to be, the mechanics of laughter in our brain. We'll then go back and look at the long history of laughter in health and medicine. Next, we'll walk through the effects of laughter on our body and mind and those research and expert opinions on the impact of laughter in health. And we'll end with talking about ways to increase humor in your life. But first, let's take a step back. Before we even dive into the effects of laughter on our body and mind, let's talk about how laughter even comes to be. And it begins in the brain. The physiological study of laughter has its own name, and that's called gelotology, from the Greek word gelos, which means to laugh. We know that certain parts of the brain are responsible for certain human functions. For example, emotional responses are the function of the brain's largest region, the frontal lobe. But researchers have learned that the production of laughter is involved with multiple regions of the brain, which is pretty cool. The brain's frontal lobe is split into two halves, the left and the right. The left is the practical side, and it works out if the sounds and images we're experiencing are a joke or not. The right side is the creative half, and it determines if we actually find the joke or situation funny. The frontal lobe cannot start our laughter off, though. That's up to the limbic system, a fundamental component in laughter. And you can see the limbic system highlighted in red in this image. It's located beneath the cerebral cortex. The limbic system handles basic emotions such as fear, anger, pleasure, and the human response to threats that we know of as fight or flight. It also makes the necessary connections for laughter to occur. So, once it gets the message from the frontal lobe that we need to laugh at something, it sends another message out which sets the physical process of laughter in motion. When a person is laughing, 15 muscles contract, and the zygomaticus major muscle, which are paired muscles that carry out the functions of the cheeks and lips, is constantly stimulated. The respiratory system also receives alterations and its functioning changes because the epiglottis closes the pharynx in certain proportions, producing irregularities in the entry of air. When someone laughs for a long time and in intense situations, the tear ducts open and even drop a few tears. Meanwhile, a strange sound accompanies this event, which is our very own unique laugh. Okay, so that's a basic overview of the mechanics of laughter in our brain and body, but where does its connection and health come in? The connection between laughter and humor can be traced back to the Bible. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones, from Proverbs 17:22. This indicates that, even in the 10th century, people understood that a joyful spirit has positive therapeutic effects, while the absence of joy will make you ill. As we look back into history, we see so many illustrations of the confluence of humor and medicine. Just truly a presentation can be on just that. But to name a few, ancient Greek physicians, as an adjunct to therapy, prescribed a visit to the Hall of Comedians as an important part of the healing process. Similarly, early Native Americans utilized the power impact of humor on laughter and healing as traditional medicine men acted as sort of clowns. During the 14th century, French surgeon Henry de Mondeville used humor to distract patients from the pain endured during surgery, as well as a therapy to aid during recovery. He actually wrote a book supporting that practice, and in that he states, "Let the surgeon take care to regulate the whole regimen of the patient's life for joy and happiness, allowing his relatives and special friends to cheer him, and by having someone tell him jokes." During the 16th century, Martin Luther, a German priest, used humor to treat psychiatric disorders as a critical component of pastoral counseling. Luther advised individuals with depression not to isolate themselves, but instead to surround themselves with friends who could joke and make them laugh. So, these examples clearly document the long history of the use of laughter in medicine. However, although the therapeutic benefits of humor were well accepted and persisted for centuries, there was limited empirical evidence supporting the positive impact of laughter on health. This lack of evidence limited its acceptance and use by caregivers. The thought was, sure, this is interesting, but is it really scientifically useful? This all changed in the 20th century when scientific researchers really examined the psychophysiological mechanisms of humor. So let's talk about some of these more recent pioneers of laughter in medicine. In 1964, Norman Cousins was diagnosed with a disease that caused the breakdown of collagen. The disorder caused constant pain and suffering, and he was given a poor prognosis of only a few months to live. Cousins served as a professor at the University of California at that time, where he conducted research on the biochemistry of human emotions, which he long believed were the keys to success in resisting and fighting illness. He often expressed his belief that since negative emotions lead to negative physiology, then positive emotions, such as humor, can lead to positive physiology. With his strong beliefs in the power of human emotions and his dire prognosis himself, Cousins decided to take his treatment into his own hands. He convinced his physicians to prescribe an intravenous dose of vitamin C, and in addition to that, he watched humorous movies and television shows to induce laughter as a consistent part of his treatment. Really good, hard laughter markedly reduced his pain and relieved his stress. He was quoted to say that 10 minutes of laughter gave me 2 hours of pain free sleep, and that laughter produced a natural body anesthesia. Cousins claimed that his humor induced treatment saved his life and allowed him to live and prosper for nearly 25 additional years. Right at the same time, there was another professor in California. This one was Dr. William F. Fry. He was at Stanford, and he was the first scientist to suggest that laughter was a suitable field of study, and he was the first one to apply for public funding. He published a number of landmark studies on the physiological processes that occur during laughter, and he became the first self proclaimed gelotologist, which is an expert in the science of laughter. Perhaps more well known to most people, Dr. Hunter Adams, also known as Patch Adams, committed his life starting in the early 1970s while attending medical school to bring fun and laughter back into the hospital world. And he put into practice the idea that healing should be a loving human interchange, not a business transaction. And there was a popular movie where Robin Williams played Patch Adams that many people may have seen. And then in the 1980s, we had Dr. Lee Burke, who was an immunologist at Loma Linda University School of Allied Health and Medicine, who studied the effects of mirthful laughter, so hard laughter, on the regulation of hormones. Burke and his colleagues found that laughter helps the brain regulate the stress hormones cortisol and epinephrine. They also discovered a link between laughter and the production of antibodies and endorphins, which are the body's natural painkillers. In his research, he found that even the expectation that something funny is coming brings about positive effects. These pioneers, starting all the way back to those ancient Greeks and early Native Americans, brought us to where we are today, where laughter therapy is an acknowledged form of therapy for those with cancer and other conditions. The National Cancer Institute's definition of laughter therapy is as followed: a type of therapy that uses humor to help relieve pain and stress and improve a person's sense of well being. It may be used to help people cope with a serious disease such as cancer. Laughter therapy may include laughter exercises, clowns, and comedy movies, books, games, and puzzles. It is a type of complementary therapy, also called humor therapy. Now, when you start to laugh, it doesn't just lighten your load mentally, it actually does induce physical changes in your body and mind. So, we're now going to take a look at some of the physiological effects of laughter. So we're going to go through these effects on our body, and as we do, you'll see that so many of them are intertwined. So it's hard kind of to say which one comes first and which starts the other. So let's just go ahead and dive in and know that they're all interconnected. So laughter increases our heart and respiratory rates, and thus it increases our oxygen consumption over a short period of time. We stretch muscles throughout our face and our body, our blood pressure goes up, and we breathe faster, which sends more oxygen to our tissues. After these initial changes, a person's heart rate and blood pressure decreases, resulting in a state of relaxation, and it soothes any muscle tension that we may have. Laughter affects our heart function. The endorphins released ultimately cause the arteries to relax, which make them more flexible and wider so blood flows freely, increasing our blood circulation. Laughter also gives your diaphragm and your abdomen, your respiratory, facial, leg, and back muscles a workout, helping to tone them. Laughter lowers levels of the stress hormone cortisol, which has a cascading effect on our body and minds. Basically, laughter provides a safety valve that shuts off the flow of stress hormones and the fight or flight response that swings into action, starting in our limbic system and affecting our whole bodies when we experience any stress, anger, or hostility. These stress hormones suppress the immune system, they increase the number of blood platelets, which can cause blockages in arteries, and also raise our blood pressure. So, when those stress hormones are decreased, there are so many positive effects on the body and mind. It's sort of a domino effect. Laughter activates the reward system in the brain and it raises levels of dopamine and endorphins, which are the feel good chemicals in the body. And then finally, laughter increases the production of certain antibodies that fight infection and decreases the production of those that cause severe allergic responses. So basically, it stops the overreaction to an allergen. Now let's go a little further and talk about research on laughter and health conditions. Again, very intertwined with what we previously discussed. So there is an inverse association between coronary heart disease and the propensity to laugh. Basically, laughing more means lower heart attack risk. This is likely due to the improved function of the blood vessels that we discussed in the previous slide. In diabetes patients, laughter has been found to decrease overall rise in glucose levels after eating. This may be because as the muscles are working and moving during laughter, they accelerate the use of glucose. However, it's also possible that laughter's effect on the neuroendocrine system suppresses the rise in blood glucose. So there could be multiple factors at work there. Laughter releases endorphins that may help you deal with pain better. So think about Dr. Norman Cousins and how he said that laughter was a natural anesthesia. That may be especially helpful for older adults who have chronic pain. One study followed two groups of seniors. One got humor therapy sessions and the other one didn't. The humor group told jokes and shared funny stories for an hour a week. And after 8 weeks, those people said they had less pain than those who didn't get that laughter therapy. Now, depression itself is a disease where neurotransmitters in the brain, such as norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin, are reduced. And there's basically something wrong in the mood control circuit of the brain. Now, laughter can raise levels of dopamine and serotonin activity, which are the brain chemicals that help to fight depression. Research shows that a good chuckle may lower stress hormones like cortisol. Furthermore, endorphins secreted by laughter can help when people are uncomfortable or in a depressed mood. And just a moment of laughter raises relatedness and our feelings of being connected to others. Many researchers believe that the purpose of laughter is related to making and strengthening human connections. A cultural anthropologist named Mahadev Apt states that laughter occurs when people are comfortable with one another, when they are open and free, and the more laughter there is, the more bonding that occurs within the group. So basically it's a sort of feedback loop of bonding, laughter, more bonding. Okay, so now I'd like to briefly discuss a recent study that I found pretty fascinating. So, after natural disasters, it is no surprise that the people living near the disaster suffer physical and psychological effects. There are many possible factors for this. After a large scale disaster, victims' health is threatened by a variety of issues, such as lifestyle changes, changes from loss of social community due to evacuation, loss of close relatives, disaster trauma, and stress caused by these factors, which may lead to the development of lifestyle diseases. But a recent study in Japan was really the first published to examine the relationship between the frequency of laughter and the lifestyle related diseases after a large scale disaster. The Great East Japan earthquake of 2011 caused both a major tsunami and the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster. This constituted one of the most destructive catastrophes in Japan to date. Due to radiation concerns, most residents in nearby towns had to evacuate and consequently suffered long lasting anxiety. Shortly after the disaster, the Fukushima Health Management Survey was launched. Similar to previous studies, the survey's results showed that after the disaster, the prevalence of people with cardiovascular risk factors, including overweight, having an imbalance of blood lipid levels, hypertension, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome, increased among community residents. At the same time as in previous studies, community residents exhibited psychological distress, particularly among those who had to evacuate. So the team of researchers looked at the evacuees over several years, studying not only their prevalence of specific lifestyle diseases, but also their self-reported daily frequency of laughter. And the researchers found that compared to those who did not laugh every day, those who did laugh every day had a lower prevalence of hypertension, diabetes, imbalanced blood lipid levels, and heart disease after the Great East Japan earthquake. So, the positive effects of laughter, both physical and psychological, was thought to have actually played a part in protecting these evacuees from the common trauma and stress related lifestyle diseases that we often see in populations post disaster. Okay, so it seems laughter may be good for us. So, is there a laughter prescription that we all should have? Well, one of the biggest problems with laughter research is that it's very difficult to determine cause and effect. For instance, a study might show that people who laugh more are less likely to be sick, but that might be because people who are healthy have more to laugh about. So, researchers agree that laughter is part of the larger picture. But regardless of whether we can find that true cause and effect of laughter, we know that it makes us feel good, and many would say it improves our quality of life. So, these researchers urge us to make time for laughter in our days, just as you would for the healthy meal, the exercise break, and the deep breathing exercises. The great news about introducing a daily dose of laughter is that there are no known side effects, you can't overdose, and so far we have not documented any allergies to our laughing breaks. Okay, so some simple tips on increasing humor in your life. Put humor on your horizon. Find a simple items such as photos, greeting cards, or memes that make you chuckle. Then hang them up at your home or in your office. Put them on your fridge or on your bathroom mirror. Just seeing these things daily can help us keep perspective when we're starting to go down a negative path. Laugh and the world laughs with you. Find a way to laugh about your own situations and watch your stress begin to fade away. Even if it feels forced at first, practice laughing. It does your body good. Share a laugh. Make it a habit to spend time with friends who make you laugh and then return the favor by sharing funny stories or jokes with those around you. And know what isn't funny. Don't laugh at the expense of others. Some forms of humor aren't appropriate. Use your best judgment to discern a good joke from a bad or hurtful one. All right, so I used some wonderful references for today's presentation that you are welcome to look at yourself. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation and this topic, and I hope you have a happy, healthy day full of some laughter. Thank you so much.